Um, and I'm hearing noise. I don't know if we're. The union's bylaws state that the management of the property and affairs of the AEU shall be vested in the board of directors, and adds that the officers of the AEU must be members of that elected board, and that the assembly is the legislative, budgetary, and policy-making authority of the union. And we as delegates are charged with choosing the members of the board of directors and of the union's officers. And it's the AEU's board development committee that the bylaws charge as the director and officer nominating committee for the union. And it is in my role as a member of that committee that I'm your host this evening. The Board of Development Committee recommends to you a slate of candidates, all of whom you will hear from today for the director and officer positions. The committee members during this round are co-chair Sue Walton of the Chicago Ethical Humanist Circle, who is term limited off the committee with this assembly after years of dogged service on the committee on your and my behalf. The co-chair and soon-to-be chair, Chris Kamen of the Ethical Humanist Society of the Triangle, John McCormick of the Philadelphia Ethical Society, and Rebecca Fisher of the Ethical Society of Austin, and until recently, Joan Johnson of the Riverdale Yonkers Society for Ethical Culture, who was representing the National Leaders Council on the committee, and Ken Novak-Moa, also of the Chicago Ethical Humanist Circle. In the normal course of things, we assemble delegates vote each year to fill 3 of the 9 elected board positions for 3-year terms. Board members may serve at most 2 full terms. This year, there's also a 1-year term to fill, as our current board president, Sonia Coopers, chose to leave the board a year early. This year, we have 5 candidates that we nominate. There are 5 candidates we nominate without preference for the 4 open board terms. We recommend, again in random order, a different random order from the last Meet the Candidates session through the practical magic of the Excel random number function. First, Carolyn Parker of the Ethical Society of Austin, Converse Sears of the Baltimore Ethical Society, Anya Overman of the Ethical Society of St. Louis, Rita Wilson of the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture, and John Dakin for the Washington Ethical Society. Each of the candidates has met the requirements in the AEU bylaws for nomination, including that no candidate's election would lead to more than 1 standing board members being from the same member society. So you'll be asked to rank the candidates in order of preference. That's on Saturday. The 3 candidates receiving the highest number of accumulated votes will each be elected to a 3-year term, and the person receiving the 4th highest number of accumulated votes will be elected to a 1-year term. In addition, we as delegates are asked to elect next year's officers. Officers must be directors, but we separately vote for officers each year. And we recommend for president, again, Carolyn Parker of the Ethical Society of Austin. For vice president, Zia Durrani of the Ethical Culture Society of Essex County, New Jersey. For secretary, Dwight Panozzo of the Ethical Culture Society of Bergen County, New Jersey. And for treasurer, Liz Singer of the New York Society of Ethical Culture. Today's session is dedicated to enabling you, the assembly electorate, to learn about the candidates vying to serve. Rebecca will be our moderator, but first Chris will explain the ground rules for the session. Chris?
You're muted, Chris.
Each candidate will get an introductory 3 minutes to speak. And then after that, we'll open up to questions by the delegates. If there are any non-delegates, we will allow you to ask questions after the delegate questions have been finished. Each of those questions can be up to 1 minute in length, and the answers by the candidate or candidates will be 2 minutes in length. Please specify which candidate you're asking the question to, whether it's all or a specific candidate, so that we can save some time by not having every candidate answer every question. So please be specific about who you're asking the question of. And I have a little helper here with me. It's called a bell, and I will ring that when the time is up. So it'll be clear to all that a person's time is up for whatever it is they've been addressing. So with that said, I'll hand it back to, I'll hand over to Rebecca, I guess, to begin with the candidates.
Well, I think we'll start with the 3-minute introduction by each candidate. And I believe Carolyn is first up for this.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. My name is Carolyn Parker. I am a member of the Ethical Society of Austin. I am a native Texan. My heroes are Anne, Sissy, Molly, Barbara, and Sarah. And if you know who they are, you know me. I should add to that, however, that my favorite word is joy, and that's the joy that I find in ethical culture. When I was invited to stand for election for president of the AEU and hopefully to the board, I agreed to do so because I felt that as a former society president and a current committee chair, as well as a veteran of 25 years of association management, I had some unique experiences and insights to bring to the movement. I immediately began working, as I am wont to do, on plans and proposals for what we might be doing in this coming year, based on those experiences and insights. Events, however, have led to more planning processes that are taking place within the American Ethical Union itself. And since those processes have developed, it seems that they've proven to be remarkably congruent with my own work in the areas of volunteer leadership development, adaptive leadership, knowledge management, programs and services, certification and accreditation, member and stakeholder engagement, advocacy, communications, and public relations. I believe that we can continue the work that has been begun by this current AEU board in partnership with the presidents of our member societies to help rebuild our organizational strength and capacity to move the ethical culture movement forward to its 150th anniversary. I would be honored to be part of that process.
Thank you, Carolyn. Condra, would you like to give us your introduction, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Condra Sears, and I am a member and secretary of the board of the Baltimore Ethical Society, where I've been a member since 2019. I am originally from the island of New Providence in the Bahamas, where I was educated and raised in the Anglican Church. And over time, I came to understand that, my values are more aligned with humanism and ethical culture. I came to Baltimore to attend graduate school, and my everyday life, I am a microbiologist turned vaccinologist, and I work on developing vaccines against bacteria that cause gastrointestinal infections. I first came to the Baltimore Ethical Society through a meetup group I joined for Black humanists. We were welcomed into the Baltimore Coalition of Reason, More Core, and held joint events. And from there, I realized I enjoyed the community, I enjoyed the platforms, and it felt like I had found a home where I could learn more about humanity and being a better human without any attachment to myth. In addition to my service at the BES, I am regularly involved in and have chaired neighborhood and regional community organizations that promote community-led development here in Southwest Baltimore. And I have to say, I think that is probably among the hardest thing I've done in my life, working with diverse groups of people from different backgrounds, with different perspectives and different goals, and trying to make decisions based on some combination of how people feel and what is actually evidence-based, right? What the data is telling us is very challenging. And doing all of that with the expectation that people will still work together at the end of the day after having some pretty difficult arguments is especially hard. My expectation, if I were to be elected to the board, is to bring my experiences and perspectives, I think especially as it relates to how to strengthen and grow our societies. I think ethical culture has much to offer a larger society, and we need to find a way to speak up and say it and share what we have. And I'm willing to help serve in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anya, would you like to go next, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Anya Overman. I'm a member of the Ethical Society of St. Louis. I'm a lifelong member of ethical culture. I grew up attending the St. Louis Society from kindergarten. I participated in SEEK back when it was still called Sunday School. I went through a coming of age ceremony and a graduation ceremony for our teen youth group, and I have held leadership roles in humanism since I was in high school. After high school, I took on more roles and responsibilities within the Future of Ethical Societies group. Then in 2015, I took my skill sets international and started as the communication officer for Young Humanists International. In 2020, I was elected president of Young Humanists International and as a board member of the parent organization Humanists International. I was elected for a second time to these roles in June, but I was removed shortly thereafter. Given this news, I have written a full statement about this on my website and will take questions about this during the Q&A. However, the gist of it is this. I spoke out against the negligent COVID policies and the unchecked white privilege that was on full display at the General Assembly and International Conference in Glasgow at the beginning of June. I was removed as a result of my attempts to hold the organization accountable to its stated values. James Baldwin said, "I love America more than any country in the world, and exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually." And that is exactly what I did when I criticized this movement. I criticized it because I love humanism. Being a humanist means more than just saying you stand for humanist values. Being a humanist is about living your values through action, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So what I brought to the Humanists International Board is exactly what I will bring to the AEU board: accountability. Because what we're facing right now in ethical culture is a do or die moment. Accountability to our values is how we meet this moment. So I hope you want to see accountability too. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Anya. Rita, would you like to go next, please? Rita, you're muted. Are you there? Rita, we cannot see or hear you. Are you there? Well, I'm going to assume she stepped away, and we'll go ahead to John. And no,
She is here, but she is muted and does not have the video on.
that's what I said.
Okay.
Let's go ahead. John, would you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll come back to Rita. Hopefully she can hear us and we can see her then. Go ahead, John, please.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Dakin. I'm a member of the Washington Ethical Society, and I live in Washington, D.C., live in Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C. There's a bio for myself and the other candidates available that you can link to from the Assembly website. But briefly, I can mention I grew up in New England, graduated from Dartmouth, and subsequently got a medical degree. My day job is in community mental health, and met my wife and raised my kids in the Ethical Society locally. I have a history of directing a nonprofit in the community, which I helped grow significantly. And for the past 2 years, I've been chairing the AEU's membership committee and have been working to bring forward content that will help existing societies to increase their vitality. And I've also had the opportunity to help establish new groups that hope to become ethical societies in the future. I was inspired to run for the board because I love our philosophy so much. And I believe that I can help the AEU fulfill its mission to, quote, create, nurture, and inspire ethical humanist communities. The AEU is in the midst of significant transitions, and there have been strong voices in recent months naming the challenges we're facing and ways in which the American Ethical Union has not been as effective as an organization as it might be. I've seen some of these things as a committee chair, and my goal in running for the board is to be able to have more opportunities to make some additional efforts to help our organization strengthen itself and significantly be more effective in listening deeply to its member societies. If you look at my bio, you'll notice that I'm a past president of the Washington Ethical Society. And in that context, I was concerned that our board was not sufficiently responsive to our societies. And that inspired me to work with others to help establish the AEU President's Council. And I believe that if I have an opportunity to serve on the board, will be an opportunity to be on the other side of that relationship and help to deepen the relationships between the AEU and its member societies. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Rita, I'm going to go back to you. Are you there and can you hear us? And if you can, you need to unmute yourself and let us see you.
Can you unmute Rita? Her buttons are stuck. I just spoke to her on the phone about that.
Yeah, I've asked Rita to unmute, but we cannot unmute Rita ourselves. That's not an available option.
We have a problem.
So what I would actually suggest, I do have a proposal. Let me change the settings for the meeting so that when someone joins the meeting, they're not muted automatically. Because in that case, Rita should be able to leave the meeting and then come back in and be unmuted. Let's try that. So yeah.
And we
So
know
Rita, if you leave the meeting now and come back in, you should be in an unmuted condition and should be able to talk.
How does she know that?
What?
she can hear us. She can't. She
Oh,
just,
she can hear us. Okay.
you just can't hear her. Okay. Somebody will need to let me know when she's back in and we'll do that. I wanted just to mention that once you hear from Rita, those 5 people, the 4 people you've heard from already and Rita are the 5 candidates to become that are new to the board. And in addition to that, we will be voting on the officers, 3 of whom are currently on the board. Maybe not 3. There are 3 board members who are also here. Let me put it that way. I would suggest that I will ask each of you to introduce yourselves as well to the folks, and maybe direct your specific comments, if you could, to the officer position that you may be taking over. So Zia.
Can we hang on a second? Rita has rejoined us, but she's muted again. Would you prefer to see whether Rita can speak now, or would you prefer to go on to the officers?
If Rita can go, that would make most sense.
Let's see what happens. Rita, are you able to unmute?
I have an idea.
Yeah, you have an idea?
Yes. So the idea is that because most of you seem to be a bit scripted, what we can do is we can use the online link from the previous talk and show Rita's section. I'll be glad to pull that up after we go through the other people if Rita is not available to speak. How does that sound? Okay, so I'll get prepared to share the screen. At some point, we can go into the next candidate and I'll make sure that we're ready for Rita.
Also, Rita could call in on the phone and we could link the accounts and you'd probably have an easier time with the controls on the phone. And
Okay, well, we'll do both of those things. Maybe Rita, if you heard us and can try to do it on the phone. In the meantime, Jay will go ahead and see what he can pull up. And I'll go ahead and ask Zia to give us a short introduction, please. See,
Ready. Can you hear me?
yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, okay. My name is Zia Durrani. I come from India, and I've been associated with the Ethical Culture Society of Essex County since probably 2004. My first acquaintance with the concept of humanism was actually a part of my study of English literature when I was studying at a university in England. And the word kept buzzing in my head, but I didn't really know until I got acquainted with the Ethical Culture Society in Maplewood that humanism was actually something that you could practice and that you could think about and that you could actually be a part of. So that to me was very exciting. I was very tentative at the beginning when I first joined the society, but then I got more and more involved, also became a committee member with their Ethical Action Committee, and was briefly also the president of the society. And I'm still a member, a fairly active member of the society, although all our activities are now online on Zoom. And I'm really going to follow Carolyn Parker's remark about the joy that she feels being a part of the society. And I think that is probably what has kept me going. The connection with the community has been absolutely invaluable. And I will continue to be a part of the local society and do the best that I can if I get elected to the next situation. And I guess that's about all I have to say about myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Zia. And Zia is standing for the vice president position. Dwight, would you like to go next and just quickly
Sure.
introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all on Zoom tonight. I'm a member of Bergen Ethical, where I also serve on the Leadership Advisory Committee. It's my honor to be completing my first year on our AEU board, where Sonia has taught me more about board functioning than I ever knew existed. Thank you for all of that, Sonia. I really appreciate it. I will miss our work together. But at the same time, I know that Carolyn has a lot to teach me, and I look forward to that as well. So I'm running for secretary this year, and if elected, I'll be trying to fill the shoes of Casey, our outgoing secretary. For those of you who know Casey, you know that if I accomplish half of what she did, I'll be doing an amazing job. In addition to that work, I'll be continuing to chair the Personnel Committee, and that position may be as demanding in the upcoming year as the secretary, because Personnel is tasked with bringing qualified candidates to the board for our new interim executive director position, as Bart will be retiring soon. And then once the board selects someone, the Personnel Committee will then have the task of working with the board and the interim to find candidates for the permanent executive director position. So I'll have my plate full, and I look forward to that work and all that I hope that it will afford me. Thanks.
Thank you. Liz, would you like to give us a quick introduction? And Liz is standing for treasurer.
So I am Liz Singer. I am currently the president of the New York Society and have been for 6 years. So I'm running for the office of treasurer. After degrees in both business and retail merchandising, I spent 30 years in the fashion business, and I held positions at Federated Department Stores, which is Bullock's, and Associated Dry Goods, which was Lord & Taylor. These positions were executive buyer and then executive merchandiser. I was responsible for increasing profits, minimizing losses, and generating new sales to any area of my responsibility, and in charge of all bookkeeping. With that, I think that my talents can be used as treasurer at AEU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. I'm going to go back one more time to Rita. If Rita can hear me and can unmute yourself, please do, and let us hear from you, Rita.
Rita is it's drawer. I'm on back and forth with Rita, talking to her, trying to solve the problem. Sonia gave us a phone number, and Rita's now trying to use the phone number. If you'd like, while you're waiting, I'll tell you. Rita has been a long. Should I tell you a little bit about Rita, or should I just shut up?
Well, hold on just a minute. If Jay was able to pull it up, maybe we can do that.
I was able. I do have the video that that was posted, so I'm glad to share that if that is appropriate. And then Dora, whatever is missing probably from that video that you think should we know, then I will trust your judgment. But otherwise, I think the video encapsulates what is going to be done. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Do I have that capability?
I've granted you that capability, Jay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, let's make some magic happen here. All right. Just want to make sure I share my sound so it's clear. All right.
Hello to everyone. Thank you for this privilege. I'm Rita Wilson. I'm from the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. And what I'd like to say, I'm interested in the board, the AEU board, because of my experiences, both with the board and also with my board, with my Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. I come with experience, I'm proud to say, from the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture, and also working in the office of the AEU for almost three and a half years. Spent time there with Bart, Elle, Donna Pang, and other volunteers. My experience will qualify me to serve well with the American Ethical Union. Qualify me because I come from Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is bad in a good way. I've had experience in being on the board, served as pledge secretary, recording secretary, also served as counselor with the Yes Group, liaison with the Yes Group from the board, founder of Lucy's Children. Also, I have I helped to find the Writers Group. So I come with the intention of sharing my experience, sharing my knowledge, and helping to shine a light on the American Ethical Union in a good and strong way, because I just know that we are an excellent, a good organization. And of course, diversity is important. I not only come because of that, I come because I think I know I have something to offer, along with helping you to qualify as being diverse.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. That was very helpful. And
My name is Carolyn Parker.
Hold on, y'all.
I'm a
Sorry.
member of the Ethical Society of Austin. I'm a native Texan.
Honey,
and
y'all
my
are
heroes are
scripted.
got it. I don't know. Carolyn's got an extra 20 seconds there. We don't want to. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jay. That was very helpful. And I hope Rita will be able to get on to be able to answer some questions going forward. Now, what we're going to do is if you would please, is there anybody on here that does not know how to use the technical raise your hand thing? I'm going to look, and if you shake your hand, I'm going to think you don't know how to do that. If everybody knows how, it's down on the reactions box at the bottom. I'm going to ask that if you have a question, that you raise your hand virtually, and we'll just take the questions. If you're submitting your question to a specific person, let us know that. If you'd like all the new board members to answer the question, we'll do that. And I'm letting the candidates know right now that I'm going to shuffle the cards with your names on them so that you'll answer it in different orders, each question, so that the same person isn't going first and last and so forth. And if it's to an already board member, an officer specific question, let us know that. If for some reason you need to ask the entire board a question, we can do that. So I don't see any hands raised.
One quick statement I'd like to make.
Okay.
I'm the official timekeeper, and so I'm going to use my trusty friend down here, Ma Bell. So when you hear that bell, you know your time is up. So thank you very much.
Okay, I do see Sarah has a question. Sarah, who would you like to address this to? Sarah, are you there? The disembodied hand is sitting in space, and you're not muted, so I don't know if you are talking to us. We can't hear you, Sarah.
Uh-oh.
Okay, are you there now? Sarah? All right, Sarah, I'm gonna come back to you if you continue to keep your hand up, and we'll try again after we have to take a couple other questions. Kathleen, you want to go forward? And who is your question for?
Well, I'm Kathleen O'Connell from the New York Society. And my question probably is to the people who have been on the board or who know about the board. I know that, that we lost Elle Miller, who had been so involved with the AEU. And I was wondering whether there is talk of replacing his position as well as the director's position.
I'm going to start with Liz, and I don't know if the others will need to answer too, but Liz, do you have an answer for?
Well, that is probably a better question to ask Dwight.
Right?
So sure, I can answer that very quickly for you. So the board made a decision.
I was just trying the number again.
Oh, Rita's unmuted.
The ID number is incorrect according. That's why I was redialing.
Rita, you're in now.
Oh, someone just said I'm in.
You are in.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm talking to Sonia. Okay, so I'll hang up from you and speak. Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Rita?
Would you like to pivot to Rita, or should I answer?
Why don't we have you answer?
Okay,
and then Rita can
so
help.
the answer is very brief. So we are changing the structure around a little bit. We have already hired a person to be a part-time admin who I understand is going to be amazing. And then we are taking the funding that resulted from the leftover money now that we don't have Elle, and we're putting that together with the executive director position. Our goal for this organization, crossing fingers, is to have a full-time permanent ED in a year or so. Does that answer your question?
Okay. If that answers the question, I don't think I'll ask others for that. Stan, do you have a question, and for whom is it?
It's for the 3 at-large candidates. And what's one thing you all would do to grow membership?
So we have 5.
I'll call you back.
I assume you mean the potential board members, and we have 5 of them, and I'm going to start with John. How would you grow the societies?
So as I mentioned in my statement, the AEU exists to support the societies. So I believe, and this is a good question for me as chair of the membership committee, that the best way for us to grow society membership is for us to support society vitality. That societies that grow are societies that are on the move, that have excellent programs on Sundays, who are active in their community, who have an inspiring speaker up front, who have a vital, engaged community, an active Sikh program. These are all the kind of elements that draw people in. So that's more of a big picture. A more pointed, a more focused effort to grow membership has to do with then marketing. How well are you putting yourselves out there in the community? How welcoming are you to visitors? How effective are you at making your society sticky, meaning that people come and they stay. They come back the next Sunday and the next Sunday after that. And so there are techniques to do that, but you can't pursue those techniques in a vacuum. Those techniques are most effective when they're happening in the context of a vital, engaged community that really speaks to people's lives.
Thank you, John. Anya, how would you, what do you want to do to help grow the societies if you get on the board?
I think it's really important to focus on young people because that is what the future of this movement is. We're seeing across societies a struggle to retain young people, especially those who graduate from high school, and we lose them to going off to college or doing future endeavors, and then we usually don't see them come back. I think there's a lot we can be doing to support those people and motivating them to not only come back, but to be motivated to grow alongside one another. So I think we can be doing more on the board to support societies in doing that. And by focusing efforts specifically on young people, I think that's the best way to get it done.
Thank you. Carolyn, how would you help us grow?
Stan, if I had to choose just one thing, I'd say that would be outreach or visibility or being more recognizable to the larger community. However you want to phrase it, our public image really matters, and having one would be a big help at this point. There are times when it seems that nobody knows who we are, that they've never heard of us. I know that when it was my time to try to find a home of congregation, a group of people that I could meet with and grow with, I had to hunt really hard, and I found ethical culture in a footnote. So it was not a very high profile, not the evidence of a great deal of outreach, and what I'd like to do is focus what resources and human resources as well as monetary resources that we can find that are available to raise our profile in the community. That might be with programs with notable speakers. That might be with high-profile ethical action projects. That might be concentrating on helping our member societies themselves do more outreach in their local communities so that it helps all of us at the same time.
Thank you, Carolyn. Condra, what's your ideas for expanding our societies?
I think everyone gave some really great suggestions already, and I want to add that I think listening to the voices of people already in your societies about the issues that they encounter, or or why people aren't staying, right? Because we still have people come to our meetings and get turned off for a variety of reasons. We've started to sort of do that work at the BES, and one of the initiatives we've started is to do some anti-racism work to focus on the internal working of the society. So I think for each society, how to grow is going to look different, but I think it starts with understanding your society itself. Why aren't people staying? Why do they visit and not return? And then really invest in reversing that decision or that issue, and doing the work to make it happen, to make people feel more welcomed and know that you're there.
Thank you. Rita, you're there. Yay.
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who helped me. Thank you very much.
So just so you know, if you haven't already been told, we heard your introduction, your 2-minute introduction from the last meeting. So you have at least been introduced. So if you want to go ahead and address this particular question about what would you do on the board to help grow our society?
I would do most of what has been suggested already. And also I would expand how we could utilize our chaplains who go to the colleges. I would look at ways to, I don't want to use the word proselytize, but ways to introduce us in a way that would cause the young people to feel welcome, and also feel that this is an organization they can be a part of. Because young people want to do something, they want to be a part. And when my kids were in college, I would see like the Christian organizations, I didn't see Catholics, but we could do the same thing on a more expanded level of making ourselves known, and also getting the attention of young people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and take the hands that are raised. There's some question about a question in the chat, but let's wait on that. Dennis, would you like to tell me who you would like to address your question to first, and then ask your question?
Well, I think first I'd like this addressed to Anya, but I think that if the others want to answer, they can answer also. There's a lot of discussion here about young people, and I have had some interactions with the 20 and 30-year-olds that are coming, and several of their opinion was that the young people are them. Anya, you were raised in Sikh. They feel that too much of the society is put on an importance of the very young people, starting at when you came in at kindergarten and going all the way through youth group. So do you think when you talk about, or when the people here are talking about young people, are they talking about 20 and 30-year-olds who have said, we have careers now, we don't have children, we have careers? Or are we talking about all people younger than me? And I'm 67. So what are we talking about when we're talking about young people? And is it a choice between, if there is limited funding in a society, shift that funding from the Sikh organizations into the 20 and 30-year-olds?
So Anya, since you were the one to, I think, first bring up the younger people, I will direct this to you first, but I will ask everyone else to answer the same question. But go ahead, Anya.
Sure, Dennis, that's a great question. I think when we talk about young people, just collectively, I would assume that most people here, when they say young people, they're really talking about that 18 to 35-year-old group of young people, because that's who's missing out. We have a really strong Sikh program. I mean, I can attest to that as someone who went through the program. I mean, it greatly impacted my life. And when I look around, I don't see a lot of other people that went through these programs with me. They're not by my side as humanist activists. They have not grown into the same, they haven't grown in the same way that I have through this movement. And I think there are ways to bring those people in, because look, people in their 20s are suffering right now. They are feeling lost. They've dealt with so many crises, and we need to pull them in a way that they feel like they can trust people to grow alongside with. And I don't feel like people think that they can find that in ethical culture. And we need to find ways to open up those avenues to be more trusting. Now, you said, should we divert money from SEEK to programs that involve 18 to 35-year-olds? I think it's certainly worth exploring, but I wouldn't want to say, yes, let's go ahead and jump on doing that, because I think SEEK is a really valuable program. So it's something that I'd want to explore for sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Anya. Kandra, do you have a question or an answer to this rather big inclusive question? Go ahead.
It is a really big issue, right? So the Baltimore Ethical Society, we had a Sunday school that hasn't really operated since COVID hit. But even before that, we had very few, like thinking of children. So people who have, so young people who also have children, and we're also losing that population. And I think part of the issue, and sort of speaking from experience, when I joined the VES, pretty much right away, I was asked to join the board. And I know a lot of our societies are small. We don't have a lot of volunteer power, but I think that can also sort of serve or be a turnoff to people. Like, they're looking for community, but they don't want to jump right into the thick of things and right into the middle of everything that's going on. And so right away, we tend to burden people right off the bat. And so I think we have to be mindful, like people are looking for community, but not to replicate, you know, the religious types of community that we came from. And so trying to make it, you know, fresh and what people need without putting the pressure that you have to show up every Sunday, or you have to, because then I think we're at the point where we're sort of asking them to do the same things that a lot of religious organizations ask of them. And that's not who we are, I think.
Thank you. Rita, do you have an answer to the question of do we have to give up SEEK to get young adults in, or vice versa?
Well, I think we need to try many avenues to entice young people. And I agree with Sears when she said that sometimes we dive right into getting new people involved, and young people included, and sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't, or maybe with young people, because it seems as though we're so hungry to have, we're so happy to have them in our presence, and then hungry to keep them and perhaps overburden them with you know, our activities. Not all the time, but sometimes.
All right, thank you. John, do you have an answer to the question?
Well, yeah. I was raised in the in Christianity, and I left organized religion for exactly the age range that was mentioned, 18 to 33 or so. I do agree that that's the definition. I think it's worth using. I think it is a tough age group to reach. I think that's true for me. I will say that when I did join my ethical society in my early 30s, I was one of the younger members. But now I'm 58. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. I invited my daughter to join me when I delivered a platform address to the Baltimore Ethical Society back in June. And among her remarks, one of which was that part of the theme was about shared leadership in ethical societies. And she said, that's really great for all you adults, but maybe you could give folks in SEEK the youth in SEEK more of an opportunity to have some agency about what the curriculum looks like, what the activities look like. And I think that's true not just for 15-year-olds. I think it's true for 25-year-olds, for 35-year-olds. So I do think it's very important. And I think the way to do it is, frankly, to do it. I think we have to put our actions, put our deed first, and to be more welcoming. I don't know about recruiting necessarily for the reasons that have been mentioned, but certainly to be open and receptive. Ageism is a thing, and it's not just about being contra the elderly. It also can be contra the young. So I definitely am supporting our being more open and welcoming to younger people.
Carolyn, would you like to respond?
Sure. The question is important because we want to grow, we want to live, we want to get past our 150th anniversary and make it even further than that. And the challenge is that our membership is declining and our membership is aging. So it only makes sense to try to reach out, to grow, to add to our numbers, but also look at the demographics that we have here. I would like to say that I have a suggestion, and I do, but it's one that I want to spend more time studying and working with before I suggest that we jump into it. But I've been in conversations with people who have contacts with another organization that we are partners with through the Secular Coalition for America, and that is the Secular Student Alliance. And I am thinking in terms of saying, can we begin talks about perhaps engaging directly with that organization in some sort of partnership between our local societies and their chapters? Can we find some way, let's use the phrase, to adopt one of their societies into our societies, not to say, y'all come to our group, y'all come to our meetings, but what can we do for them? How can we go to them and support what they're doing and what they want? The same strategies that we're being told we need to do, and a number of times when we say, we want this group to come, we want this group to join us, we want this partnership, very often we expect them to come to us. And so I'm thinking it might be possible to go where the young people are and maybe support them in the things they want to do. Again, I haven't studied it enough, so it's not a firm proposal, but it's an idea, and I'm out of time, sorry.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, Sarah, you put your question in the chat as well about if you can be heard now. I want to make sure you feel like your question kind of has been answered with the conversation about how to get younger people in. Are you there? We're still not going to be able to hear you. So her question was, can you expand on the ideas of promoting the movement for younger people, and how important do you think it is to attract them to the boards, both for the society and AEU? It feels like you've addressed that generally. Sarah, if not, maybe you can put something else back in chat and we'll try again.
Sarah asks that the second part of the question be addressed about about attracting, whether it's important to attract and recruit younger people to society boards, AEU board committees, leader training, etc.
Well, that was addressed by at least 3 of the people already, but do any of the candidates want to take that on specifically? Maybe go ahead. Anya, go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that, yes, it's absolutely vital to get younger people onto these boards, because you're eventually going to run out of people. I'm sorry to say it, but this organization and movement is skewed, very old. And eventually you're not going to have people to keep filling in through the pipeline. We need young people on the board and in leadership. It's vital. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn, you wanted to say something about this in particular?
About this in particular, at some point there will be the question of how do we form committees in this next year. and who should be on these committees and what will their mandate be. There's certainly some expectation and reasonable expectation there'd be continuity from one board to another, but I would like to see us push, I'm told is not a good word, but let's emphasize the need for more people to be involved. And it is particularly important I think, to reach out to FES, and I'm ready to go to yes, to say that at least a spot there is open, that they're welcome to participate, because it's not just a matter of needing to grow and last on into the future. There's actually some good ideas there. So it won't really hurt us to do that, to add more people, if the young people have time. And I think we have to show some flexibility on that issue.
Thank you very much. Dwight, did you want to speak to this particular issue?
No.
Okay.
No, I think we actually have an exemplification of a young person who is running for the board. And if Anya has, secret sauce that she can share with other young people about running and, becoming a more active part, of course, that should be shared out. We do need those people.
Okay. John, did you want to address this, or did you have your hand up for something else?
I was going to give a one-word answer, yes. But I want to say a little more, because I think that the ex officio representation of FES and yes on the AEU board has been an option in the past. But I think there's something even more powerful about elected roles. So I think that's fine, but I think it's not enough. I think we should be actively looking to nominate young people for elected roles.
Thank you. I'm going to move.
Chandra had her hand up.
I think everybody, but pretty much covered it. But I think, including young people, not just because people are going to age out, but just improving that sort of diversity on our boards and in our societies is important, because of ideas. People have different perspectives, people have different talents, and that, having people who are sort of just, growing and learning and bringing in fresh ideas, I think is vital.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going to move forward unless somebody yells out right now, one of the candidates. We need to keep going through our questions. So Laura, you've had your hand up for quite a while. Who are you directing yours to?
Everyone.
Okay.
So, and I have more than one question. I can collapse a couple of them and save one for a little bit later. Hopefully there'll be time, or I can do all three of them. What would you prefer?
Well, collapse what you can and just let's start one at a time, and
Okay.
we'll go through all of them.
Here's the collapsed version. There's a combination of a confluence and sometimes a competition between transparency, confidentiality, and support when it comes to the board's business. So how, for instance, would you see that confluence operating, and how would you see yourself operating within it? So for instance, the example from Anya's experience, as I understand it, is that she believed very strongly in something and addressed that. That's not 2 minutes.
No, you don't get 2 minutes, but go ahead. We're going to let you finish it since you're collapsing two questions into one. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So how, if you're on the board, you have an obligation for confidentiality, you have an obligation to support the board's decision, and you have a obligation for transparency. How do those things work in your mind?
Okay, I'm going to go in a different order for this one. And if any of you need further clarification of the question, it's quite complicated, but let's try. Rita, let's start with you first. How do you feel like you can connect the transparency, confidentiality, and support that you need to provide if and when you're on the board?
I think those are very important issues. Very important. However, if I agree that I'm in a meeting and this is supposed to be confidentiality, that's what it should be. That's what it would be. It's not that I would not, if it's something that I would feel strongly about sharing, then I would have that conversation at the board level. In terms of transparency, I think transparency is important. Also, and in our membership, that's important. If it's agreed that the membership should know about the budget and know about how much money has been spent for something that we deem to be foolish, then it should be. It should be. I would have the conversation with the board members first to let them know this is what my position is. I think both issues are important. I think support, of course, that's necessary. But the agreement, if it's supposed to be in confidence, then that's what I would have to do.
Thank you, Rita. Carolyn, how do you see the confluence of transparency, confidentiality, and support of board issues?
So my experience has been that, oh, sorry.
Did you say Condra or Carolyn? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Condra. I was going with Carolyn.
Oh, that's fine. Sorry.
Sorry, and I didn't hear well either. Okay. There's been a fair amount of discussion circling around these issues in the past few months, and it caused me to think, what would I do under these circumstances? And here's what I think. This is me. This is not what will happen. It's what I may talk to the board about to say, can we agree to do this? I believe in democracy being transparent and inclusive. Those are bedrock principles for me. And I also believe that when I agree to do a job, I do want to follow the criteria for the job. So we have some time, we need to look at what are the standards for board members, what are we supposed to do, and follow those. At the same time, if it fits within the realm of either what is approved or what we can approve, I would like to have open board meetings so that anybody can attend. That doesn't mean privilege of voice for everybody who attends. The board's got to get its work done. But if you want to know what we're doing, I'm glad to have you there. I would also like to see that our minutes are properly posted for people to see what decisions we've made, and that we proactively publicize those decisions to our members, either through newsletters or email push, whatever it is that is going to be our in-reach kind of possibility. Part of this is not intended in any way to say that I criticize anything that has been done in the past, as much as that it is reflective of how I would like to operate, and because it cuts down on the noise. If you know what we're doing, then you're happier that way, and I'd like to see it be that way. And I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Carolyn. Liz, would you like to tell us your perspective of this question? We can't hear you.
We'll answer it in, so New York, I'm going to tell you what I do, what New York does. We believe in 100% transparency. All of our board meetings are open to everyone and anyone that wants to attend them. Our executive committee, not executive session, our executive committee is open to anyone that wants to attend.
Hold on just a minute, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
The big problem occurs when there is, because fiduciary responsibility as trustees is not only money, but it can be mission and it can be other issues. require many times a legal responsibility. And I'm a firm believer in consultants to consult on issues before we get into making that transparent, because sometimes we cannot. And then all content that we are discussing is available. It's not about content, it's about legal responsibilities. So that is the way I function.
Thank you. Condra, how do you see this question of transparency, confidentiality, and support of AEU issues?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult balance to strike. But to Carolyn's point, I think one thing that makes it easier is people having ready access to policies that are clear and readily available. So if you can point people to, so people understand how you make decisions, show that you've thought out what you would do in the event of a problem before a problem arises, that shows that there's a clear sort of path that you follow. Holding open board meetings, but also making sure people are clear when and why you need to hold executive sessions, right? So people need to also understand that there are times or situations where confidentiality is important and should be held. And I think just keeping dialogue and communication open as possible makes it easier for a board to walk that line.
Thank you. John, do you have an answer to this question?
There's no one answer. I think a lot of it is context dependent. I'll say that during my term as president of the Washington Ethical Society, really president of the board, the presidential role is more circumscribed at our society than in the AEU. But during my term as president of the board, I worked with an attorney in our society to craft a policy guiding the use of executive session, because I think that was helpful, that when you know why and how to go into executive session, I think it makes it easier to be transparent for everything else, because you know how to manage that boundary. And I was really pleased to be able to bring that forward as a member of the AEU's policy committee to help our recently concluding board put together and improve and build upon its own policies for that. So in general, I agree with what's been mentioned before about the usefulness of open board meetings, with the understanding that there can be a comment period, but we do have an elected group of people who need to have the primary, performing the board business. But I also do want to note that I think the board that is finishing up its term has been faced with some immense challenges of a nature. I don't know much, but I know enough to know that some of these things require, for the sake of legality and for the sake of protecting people, that there be limits on disclosure. And so I don't have any reason to believe that was ever pursued inappropriately. But I do want to answer the question, and to the extent that we can be open, I'm supportive of that.
Thank you. Zia, do you have an answer for this confluence of transparency, support, and confidentiality?
I don't really have a definitive answer. My experience with the local society that I've been a member of, I don't remember ever coming across a situation where one had to balance these two things, one against the other. We have considered our board meetings open, but I don't remember any people who were not connected with the society that actually came. The people who came who were not on the board were people who had already been on the board, and even though their term had finished, they would come out of curiosity to see what was going on. There were some legal and ethical situations that occurred, but it was before my time and I wasn't really involved in that. So I would go along with, what the rules and regulations are and how people feel about considering certain things that are confidential. And if you are told they're confidential, you would obviously keep it to that. So my experience in that has been very limited. I have had a lot more experience of finding out how these things are dealt with since I came on the board of the current AEU board. So I don't have any outside suggestions, but I agree that it depends upon the context of what is going on. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Anya, how would you address this?
I think that's a really good question. And I think of the people here, of the candidates here, I'm probably the one that's been most involved in a situation like this. If I'm elected, this will be the fourth board that I've sat on, and I'm 29 years old. This past experience that I had with Humanist International really brought that confidentiality and transparency dichotomy to a head. And I was put in a very difficult situation where I had to choose between my ethical values and going along with what I knew was wrong. And I chose the former. And like I said in my opening speech, accountability is what I bring to the table here, and it's what I bring to the AEU too. But one of the things that I can see being executed through that lens of accountability is, like John Dakin said, he said that we would have policy and that we could use this policy to shape the way that we form these boundaries between confidentiality and transparency. The more we can get clarity on this, the easier it's going to be for any board member. We need these structures. We really do. So that's the way that I would move forward in this.
Thank you. And Dwight, last but not least, do you have an answer here?
Just very briefly. So all of what John said, most of what Liz said, I didn't find anything that anybody said that was really, I disagreed with in general. Of course, we need to be as transparent as possible, but we are always balancing that transparency with the privacy of our staff of the AEU, our volunteers, and making sure we follow the recommendations of the Law and Mediation Committee, which has proven to be vital in the last year. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, you had your hand up. Did you also want to ask a question of others?
I do. A question for all the candidates. So from personal experience, I found that it's easy to find fault in others, but that real growth and collegiality requires that I take accountability for my own part in challenges that arise, even though those challenges can easily be portrayed as not caused by me. In fact, I believe that externalizing blame is probably the central problem of our call-out culture. Given that awareness and the fact that the AEU has gone through a series of very challenging events in recent years, how would you model accountability for other board members and the movement as a whole when responding to challenges when you are a member of the board? Thank you.
Dwight, do you want to answer your own question first, or do I come back to you last?
You come back to me last.
Oh, sure. Okay. So, Tandra, I don't know.
Yes.
It's funny. I had this exact long conversation yesterday about externalizing blame. Didn't use those words, but it was exactly right. So, how would you try to address this issue of people not being accountable or finding fault with others?
So actually, one of the things I try to do is make sure that, like, I look inward, like, what did I do? So being reflective of what I do. And I think that's important, and to always ask that question first, like, what actions have I done or what did we do that people could find fault in, recognizing that even if we don't think we are to blame, that others can blame us, right? I think that is really important first. And then, if you have made a misstep, speak up and say that, and be prepared for the worst, that there could be severe backlash to your actions. That's a really tough question, but I think, looking inward first and trying to figure out, what you did, and talk to people, right? Not just assume that they have a conversation with people so that you're clear about what their perspective is, what their feelings are. But I say look inward first always.
Thank you very much. Anya, you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks for that question, Dwight. I think it's imperative to model what you want to see in the world, and that starts with holding yourself accountable. And if you read the statement that I've mentioned about this, you can read about the regrets that I have with my own actions in Humanist International. I take accountability. I recognize that I can do better. And that's the sort of accountability that I would expect fellow board members to hold with themselves as well. And if that's not the case, that means that we need to have a conversation. And I'm ready to sit down and have that conversation and stick with it, even when it's difficult. I hope that answers your question.
And it will be difficult. I can attest. Rita, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, I'll comment on. I think it's good question. Good question. Accountability is important. Adhering to guidelines important. Just many things need to be considered. Many things such as the facts, whatever you have before you, whatever you've read, be sure that you, if it's a situation that you're not sure about, perhaps you can discuss it with someone else who's in the group, if it's a group, or try and exhaust all means so that you will stand correct in making a decision. And it is not easy. It is not easy. I don't have a formula, but I do know that you must examine and reflect and just be supportive as best as you can within the realm of doing the right thing. You got to do the right thing.
Thank you. Zia, how would you address externalizing blame and others on the board? Zia?
Yeah, I was just trying to get my unmute done.
Okay, good.
I'm not sure that I really understand the question. Could you sort of elaborate on it and exactly what you're trying to find out?
Dwight, do you want to try to give her a little bit more help there?
Right.
I don't want to misstate what you're trying to get to.
Zia, I would say that Chandra, Rita, and Anya all gave amazing answers already to it, each in their own way, and each brings really catches. And I'll give you my answer to it, and maybe that'll help you.
Yes.
So what I am actually, we're forming, we've had a couple of meetings already at Bergen, and hopefully we can build it out as a model for other societies. We call it the accountability circle, where we gather together a couple of times a month on Zoom, trying to explore very difficult social problems and finding out what could we do differently to try to work on this problem. How a problem comes up that the board confronts. How did we as board members not see this coming? How did we as board members not address this challenge months ago, years ago? And then instead of like finding fault and saying you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, say we needed to have done X so that hopefully this wouldn't have happened, or if it happens again in the future, it'll be, to a far lesser degree. That's what I'm going after here, Zia.
Well, I think that if there is a challenging situation, you would obviously, with consultation with other people, deal with it the best that you can. I'm not sure that I've had an experience where I have had to answer to a serious situation like that. But what I can see is the way that we have dealt with some challenges on the AEU board has been very, very educational in the way that people have taken responsibility for what they thought and how their opinion was formed. And I just can't imagine being a part of the Ethical Culture Society and not being accountable. So to me, it's like a moot question. Take responsibility for whatever your opinions are.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. John, would you like to answer this question?
Sure. Well, there's the saying about before you look and call out whatever it is, a speck in your neighbor's eye, look at the log that's in your own. But the thing about that is, if I had a log in my eye, I'd feel it. And so I think that when I'm engaging with other people, I perceive in the moment that what I'm doing and saying are appropriate. It is the relatedness that allows there to be a feedback loop. All too often for me in this culture, given my demographic, I have often, what I've come to realize, escaped that response loop. And so what's been really valuable for me as I live and work in my diverse community is to put an effort into being a better listener and creating trusting environments in which there is sufficient safety for that feedback loop to occur. So this idea of an accountability circle, when I hear that, it really sounds like there's an effort to make that happen. So I think it's a great question, and the answer is complex. I think it is one of cultivating a particular kind of culture. 3 weeks from today, I'll be giving a platform address at the Washington Ethical Society about the mental health field and what it takes for mental health providers like myself. And I'm a psychiatrist. I'm pretty high in the pecking order in this field. And I don't think it's possible to talk about improving the accountability for medical and mental health providers than to have someone who is living with mental illness. And so it's going to be a dialogue with someone living with bipolar disorder who's also an ethical culturist. So I think there needs to be dialogue and openness and a culture of trust to make that occur.
Thank you. Liz, would you like to go next?
So this is extremely complicated question. So accountability, I have a question for Dwight. When you say social situation, that's members of the society where there's a social situation, not a global social situation that you're discussing in your group.
We have big topics, Elizabeth, but we're so new, we're not drilling down to the personal behavior level yet.
So here's, so I'm going to try to pull this apart because I'm not quite understanding really where we're going. And that is one of the issues that happen in where you can't be accountable or things happen, is not truly understanding what we're trying to get to. So in accountability to ourselves, accountability as ourselves to the group, accountability as ourselves to the group and the project. So I find with—
Yes, and yes.
Okay, so I find that ethical culture is always a group of some sort. I am never, ever an I. By the way, I'm never an I. So, why this is so difficult is that it's multi-layered. So I'm going to take it to my most simplistic thing that I use at Ethical Culture. And that is one of our taglines, elicit the best. So elicit the best means in every situation that becomes complicated, I always say, how do we elicit the best from this? Because there's a tendency to look for the worst. And that kind of works for almost everything that we get involved in. If we can bring ourselves back to the best, oh, okay, I think I'm done. But anyway, that's my answer.
Thank you, Ruth. Carolyn, last but not least on this one.
It's certainly complicated, and there were certainly some fine answers given. And I agree with the points that we're all making. I especially want to emphasize the point that I like to know what the rules are, so I can follow the rules if the rules are there for me to follow. And if I don't like them, maybe we can change them, but still, clear boundaries, clear direction, so we know what we're responsible for. Another piece of an answer that I'd like to put out there is we talk about accountability, we talk about responsibility, we talk about blame. I'd like also to hear us talk about forgiveness. I'd also like to hear us talk about the fact that sometimes stuff happens. And I would really strongly like to talk about the fact that, yes, sometimes accountability means with something that really needs to stop, don't do that anymore. But when we say don't do that anymore, let's talk about doing it a better way the next time. How can we make it better? What lessons can we learn? How can we go forward together to be better? I'm not responding to all of the levels of nuance that are there, but I think if we find our boundaries, know which way we want to go together, and do it with empathy and sympathy, we'll go a long way.
Thank you, Carolyn. I just want to point out that if you don't have your hand raised yet, it's too late. We've got several more questions, and we are going to keep going a little bit longer. We got started late, and we've had a lot of really good and complicated questions. So I'm going to just make that decision. Committee members, if somebody wants to override me, let me know. But otherwise, we're going to go with the questions we have now. So, Dror,
Thank you. I'll make it the question very quick. We're still following the congregation model, meeting Sunday mornings like a church or like a synagogue, and it hasn't changed since the founding of Ethical Culture. And so the question simply, without my saying my point of view, do you think this is still the way to have a society and a movement grow, like the Sunday morning platforms with the talk and music, etc.? If not, what would be the alternative? What are some ideas? And are there other groups you've seen that you think are doing things in a way that we could be picking up on and doing it? And I'd like to ask Anya first. How's that?
That's fine. Is this to the new board members?
Yeah. Well, we could ask it to everybody and to all the members, but let's just stick with the new people because
of time.
Okay, Dror, you have a lot of background noise coming from you. Mind muted.
I'll turn it off now.
Thank you. I saw Anya's hand up, but I'm going to go through my cards since I've tried to do it on a rotating basis and be fair to folks. So, John, you're first on my list now.
Okay. So I have, there is a workshop coming up on the 21st that follows a book discussion that I facilitated back on the 12th, which draws from a book looking at how to revitalize organizations. And it does bring up the possibility of mixing up, the Sunday experience, maybe make it a different day than Sunday. I don't think there is a particular, my understanding of the literature that's out there, both the religious side and the secular side, There's not a magic bullet. A lot of it comes down to thinking about what you want your organization to be. Who are you not reaching? Who is in your community that you might be reaching? And can you craft something that will reach them? Maybe it should have more music. Maybe it should have less. Maybe it should have more of an intellectual talk than it is now. Maybe less so. Maybe there should be more movement. Maybe there should be art. Maybe people should be moving around. In COVID times, maybe it should be outdoors under a tent. But the idea is to open up creativity and courage to break out of molds that have been around for a long time. And Dror, I know you were at the book discussion, and so I hope that some of the readings and a summary that I put together from the book, because it uses churchy language and churchy examples, but I think a lot of it translates into our tradition.
Thank you, John. Just FYI, we will not be having it in a tent outside in Texas for the next 3 months. I can guarantee you, I will single-handedly make sure that doesn't happen. Anya, go ahead.
Oh, yes. This question really excites me. That's why I threw out my hand so fast. So one thing I want to point out is I think, like John mentioned, the camping trips. When I was growing up at the St. Louis Society, we had annual summer trips out to Washington State Park. And those are some of the best memories that I have of growing up in the society as a kid. That was so impactful. And I think, you know, it's not just great for kids and for families, it's great for young people, people that are in that 18 to 35 year range, because it's a relationship building experience. And we need more of that throughout the week, not just a Sunday platform where we're all sitting facing the same direction. You know, we need more of those opportunities to engage with each other, not just young people, but intergenerationally. And I want to mention, I'm in LA right now. There are 3 things that Atheists United in LA are doing that I absolutely love. The first one is called Atheist Street Pirates. And what they do is they go and get signs that are hung up illegally. And most of the time they have religious text written on them. That has gained national attention. And now a lot of young people are very interested in volunteering to help out with that. And they're putting together a handbook for how other groups across the country can execute on doing the same thing. Another thing that they're doing are monthly food distribution events where they're handing out food to the community. And it's now such an established thing that they get a regular 100 families coming in each month. Now that's a lot of work, but again, an experience and a relationship building thing where you're giving back to the community. The third thing that I'm really excited about is the Smart Recovery Group that Atheists United has. That's actually been the most successful thing that they've done. They've had so much success with that. Now, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Smart Recovery. It's the secular alternative to Alcoholics Anonymous, or NA. So they have one and it's just doing really well. So well, they had to open up another one because there was just too many people. So these are all really awesome ideas where we're engaging subgroups within our community to really bring them in and give them an opportunity, not just to build relationships, but to grow together. So yes, there's so many things that we can be doing, and I'm super excited to tell all of you about more of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Chandra, do we need to be meeting every Sunday or some other time?
We don't. I think we really need to rethink how we come together, and I think it would help solve a lot of other problems, right? Because if you're out doing things, being active, and not and like at the BS, we sort of pride ourselves on having really great Sunday platforms, and that's a part of it. But I think you also want to be seen out in your community, you know, just being normal, regular people, because there's still that stigma that atheists or humanists are not, we're not ethical people, right? We are immoral or all sorts of nonsense. And I think that's one way to counter that stigma, while also just enjoying time with your fellow society members, right? And getting to know each other in other ways, because that's the other part of those Sunday platforms. I mean, you have like a brief like coffee hour after, but there's also not a whole lot of time to just get to know people within your society outside of that. So I think, you know, moving away from that really like Sunday structure would benefit societies in a lot of different ways, and you know, help them sort of rebuild or renew their culture.
Thank you. Carolyn?
This is a tough one for me, Dor, because most of our societies are very small. So they have limited numbers of people to do whatever it is they want to do. It would be wonderful to have multiple programs so that people with different interests can do different kinds of things. But in smaller societies, that's more of a challenge. For larger societies, you certainly have an abundance of diverse activities, and that can attract different groups for different times. I think that what we need to look at are the various societies that we have in the sizes that they are, with the capacities that they have, and see what they want, what they need for their growth and development. And some of them will say, in fact, not all of our societies actually meet on Sunday morning. Some are meeting on Sunday afternoon, some are having Friday mornings, Wednesday evenings, depending on who their members are. But we need to look at what the potential for growth is, potential for development is within our various societies, rather than to say one size is going to fit all. Austin is not NYSEC. Silicon Valley is not Brooklyn. They each have different needs and sizes. So I wouldn't reject Sunday mornings because that's when most of us are available, but not everybody wants to get up on Sunday morning. So maybe we need some other possibilities. So don't shut the door, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Thank you. Rita? How do you feel about Sunday morning?
Personally, I feel fine about it. That's the best time for me, but I can't judge it according to feedback we have gotten from sometimes young people. They do not like to rise at 8 o'clock so they can be at a service at 11. So I think we need to be flexible and allow the young person or the young people to be in charge of whatever that they have plans of implementing, such as if they want to have a service at 1 o'clock, fine. Put the responsibility in the hands of the young for that. And I agree with what I'm saying, yet on the other hand, when I passed the synagogue not far from where our building is, early in the mornings, the Sunday morning, I couldn't count the preambles that were parked outside because young people were up with their children and going to a service. So I think we have to do according to the audience that we have in place.
Thank you. I'm going to just quickly say, are there any current board members that have a dying wish to answer this question? If so, hurry and raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm moving on. Okay, I'm moving on. Betty, do you have a question, and for whom do you want to address it?
I think it's a general question to whoever wants to take it. As I've listened to this session, I have a feeling of the elephant in the room that nobody mentions. Many of our smaller societies, particularly, have been turned upside down by the COVID epidemic. Everything, it's touched everything. The relationship between parents and children, and because of school and not school, and so who comes and who doesn't come, but everything. And I wonder, this seems to me to be something that impacts on any of the smaller societies, and maybe some of the larger ones too. And it's going to be hard to get people to go back into normal mode once we have a hybrid programming. And I wonder how, when we think our way forward, this book here, it's such a cosmic shift, doesn't really address that. And how do we think our way forward as a movement to get beyond this? And what kind of direction can we get from the AEU? Or what kind of concern?
Okay. Kundra, do you want to start? And do you have any specific ideas about how we're going to work our way through this whole COVID problem?
Carefully and sensibly, I hope. But I think hybrid is here to stay, and it should be. So our society gained 2 or 3 new members who don't live anywhere near Baltimore during COVID. And we have a lot of older members who, simply don't feel safe returning to in-person. And so I think the hybrid format gives us an opportunity to, attract new members, but also keep our existing members safe. And what we have done, we have book clubs, a whole lot of things are happening because people want to connect and connect safely. And so they have organized activities online, and we as a society are committed to keeping that option open. And I think the AEU, especially for smaller societies that might not have the technical know-how or the equipment to make that happen, I think it's probably important to ensure that all societies have either access to that those capabilities, either through human support or technical support, equipment support, to help them continue to provide programming to their members. And then I think, so I sat on our committee to figure out how we return to in-person meetings safely. So I think that we also have to be mindful that there are people who want to come back, but do so safely so that we can continue to meet in person safely. And connect that way. So it will be challenging, and I think it's probably going to be, it's an area where the AEU can really help, because our hybrid task force took quite a while to figure out just the mechanics of making that work. And not every society is going to have people who are dedicated who can do that type of thing. But I think it's important that that happens.
John, do you have an answer for this?
I can try. It's a big issue. It's a big question. I can try to give an example from my day-to-day life. I'm a therapist in private practice with 2 administrative support folks because of we're making an effort to grow. So we have a pretty significant administrative support presence, but the 3 of us have never worked in the same building in the 2 years that we've been working together. And I think we've worked well, and we've served our clients. When the lockdown happened in my area, we shut everything down and had to switch over to Zoom. It was hard, but we made the change, and only partly have gone back. I offer to see clients outdoors in a park nearby when it's not too hot. Fortunately, I don't live in Texas. It's not ideal, but I've really been dedicated to protecting the safety of my clients, myself, and our staff. I think our societies have to be creative and really clarify for ourselves our core values and our core commitments, and to operate from those, even if it means we cannot be in person as much as we used to be, or we might even want to be. And that is posing major challenges, there's no doubt about it, but I think it's important to stay true to our values. Wes has been very careful about having in-person events and requiring masking and proof of vaccination or a negative rapid test. And I think most other organizations of this kind in our area don't have those requirements, but I think it's the right thing to do. So again, what I mentioned earlier is about being creative and connecting and facing this together to stay true to our values.
Thank you.
Most concerned when I raised the issue about what this does to his Sunday schools and the whole cycling of life that there. I mean, because that's where I think many of our societies have seen just rampant change.
Rita, do you want to address Betty's question?
I'd like to have my closing statement in a little while, when it's time for us to close.
Okay. Anya, do you have any additional anything additional to add to?
Sure, I think
Betty's question.
I think in terms of resourcing and funding, the best way to support the smallest societies is by investing in tech support. The pandemic's not going away. We're going to continue to have waves. We're going to continue to have to navigate how to meet safely in person. So the best way to manage continuing on with what we're doing is to sustain a hybrid model. And we need to be able to provide our smallest organizations with that, because there are people that are all over this country that are immunocompromised and would love this community. And we need to be thinking about those people who are never going to be able to leave their homes because of this pandemic, because of how dangerous it is for them. We need to be thinking of those people. So to have this hybrid model that we can sustain is going to really put us a cut above the rest, because think about it, churches are not thinking about how to do that in the same capacity. They're just going back to how it was before. So I think this could be a real strength for us if we really invest in it.
Thank you. Carolyn, any last words on this?
I pretty much want to say what Anya said, but reflecting on this, it certainly this epidemic is not going away. Hybrid is likely to stay in every way, but while there are losses because of the epidemic, we've had some gains already with the kind of programming we've tried to institute in the AEU with, for example, the All Society platforms and virtual assemblies. We're making some progress. We certainly have more we could do to improve, but this is an opportunity to think bigger, if you will, in terms of possibilities for growth, for membership. There are people who are asking us repeatedly, do we not have individual memberships? Do we not have ways to be affiliated with the AEU when we don't live where there is a local society to attend meetings in person? This is a challenge that I think we could well meet at this point, and see some changes in many of our current models if we embrace what the possibilities are from the fact that we still have the problem of COVID for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. All right. Laura, you're going to get the last question tonight.
Holy smoke, and I have 12 more.
Sorry.
Well, what occurred to me earlier was the discussion about growing our societies and growing the movement. And some or maybe all of you watched James Croft's presentation a couple of months ago. And one of the things he said that I've been very aware of for many years, including when I was on the AEU board, is those of us who want to see our membership grow and our movement grow aren't really addressing the internal issue, which is those people who don't. And those people who either consciously or unconsciously sabotage that effort to grow. And so I'd like to know what you all, well, I'd like to start with John, how you all think about that, especially for your own societies.
So if I'm understanding the question, it's how to grow our societies while dealing with people who in our societies who don't want that. Is that right?
Yes, who are in resistance.
Okay, John, she want to direct this to you first.
Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome.
My own society mate here. Okay.
I think the word sabotage is a strong word, and I suggest first of all that we back away from a term like that. That I think anyone who has feelings of not wanting growth come from a heart place that it's incumbent upon us to understand where that's coming from. I really do believe in local society self-governance. And if a local society's leadership does not want to grow, that is their choice. So having said that, let's just imagine that there's a society with internal debate. I think that if you recall, I mentioned earlier about the idea of accountability that can emerge within a culture of trust. And, you know, I don't want to say I know have the corner of the market on how to do that. I mean, I think Dwight has a great thing he's working on at Bergen. But if you can create a culture of trust where people can speak from their heart, you might hear what they are thinking about when they're not sure about growth. That there's a wonderful literature, part of which that was referred to in the book discussion we had on the 12th, that people are concerned that growth will take away the feeling of intimacy. It can take away a sense that everyone knows everyone and we're really in a family and a community together. Well, if you can surface those issues, then you'll discover there are ways for a growing numerical community to retain that feeling of intimacy through the use of small groups, through the use of more than one service. If your service has more than 50 people attending, have more than one so you keep the size lower. There are creative ways to be able to do that. And if you really need to, found a daughter society in the area. So I hope that answers the question. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, John.
Rita, you want to take this question?
Would you repeat it again, please?
Sure. If you've got people that are wanting to have the society grow and people who do not want to have it grow, how would you deal with that conflict?
You know, I think those who are not interested in having it grow, the society grow, I would have a conversation, of course, and try to influence them the importance of growing. And if they refuse to or just don't have that interest, then I think I would continue to do the things that I find necessary to grow the society, and that would give that person or those people who are reluctant to be influenced about growth, it would give them facts to see how important growth is.
Okay. Condra?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think people tend to be afraid of change, right? And the last 2-3 years have been full of it. We've asked people to adjust to an online only model. We're asking them to do hybrid. Maybe we're asking them to come back. And I think it's important to have conversations with people and find out exactly what it is that they're resistant to, right? Because I do think we're in a time when people have probably felt some loss of community because we can't meet face to face, right? And so they've adjusted to something new. So to have the conversations, but I think you know, be transparent about the decisions you're making, why you're making them, have those tough conversations. So you're not, you know, assuming that people are actively sabotaging a process and maybe just they haven't worked through what it is, what fear they have or what's bothering them about how things are changing. But I do think it's important to listen to your membership and take care of your membership, and be sure that they're not losing their sense of community and understand that they could be, you know, gaining an even richer community through growth.
Carolyn, I know we've thought about all this problem. What do you have in mind here?
Yes, Austin seems to be representative of all of these issues. We have some of everything in Texas. And we have exactly this kind of discussion. how do we grow? And then someone said, you know, I'm really comfortable with how we are. It's really okay with me. Which speaks very clearly to what John has said, that those kinds of attitudes may come from a place of need and concern, maybe even hurt in the person that's saying those things. So we've all come to ethical culture for various reasons, and some of us came carrying hurt with us, looking for healing. Maybe we have to start back up a little bit and talk to our members who are uncomfortable with change. Well, Condra made a very clear point. It's all, there's change, there's constant change going on. Life itself is change. So we have some work to do in helping our people come to the point where we would all like to be. And fortunately, John has been bringing has brought one workshop, will bring more to talk about some of these creative ways to look at those problems. What alternatives might you have to do that? I think it's an exciting time to talk about change and possibilities. It's very refreshing.
Anya.
Yeah, I think this resistance to growth is pointing towards a much deeper problem, which is that, like has already been said, there's something that's innate and maybe not even really conscious from people that are resistant to this change. And we really need to dig into that. And I'm going to tell you right now, those conversations are going to suck. They're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to want to leave. You're not going to want to sit through them. But they're super important, because when we're talking about change and growth here, we're talking about bringing in more young people. We're talking about bringing in more people of color. We're talking about bringing in more queer people. We're talking about bringing in more disabled people. These are all people that we might not interact with, not all of us, on a day-to-day basis. And the way that we relate to these people might be really difficult. So we need to find ways to break through that difficultness and find the stickiness of relationship, like John said, to bring these people in. So we need to have these conversations internally about what is so scary about these changes and name the things. We need to name them. We can't just say change. We need to say, we have a white supremacy problem in this organization. We do. And we need to address it. The only way we can do it is to talk through it and to commit to sit through these conversations with one another and trust one another. And that's how we're going to do it. It's going to be very uncomfortable. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the questions. I didn't get clarification from my committee about the wrap up. So is it 2 minutes for each candidate to wrap up, or 1? I'm not hearing anything, except I'm seeing Chris's clock at 2. So Carolyn, were you told something different? You're looking very, you don't.
No, I wasn't. It's fine.
You weren't expecting to do a wrap up?
It's fine.
Then all the better. Make it short and sweet.
Thank you.
And succinct, we'll all be thrilled. So I'm going to go backwards from what we just did. So Anya, if you'd like to go ahead, you have a maximum of 2 minutes. If you want to make it shorter, all the better.
Great. Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I just want to share this quote with you from someone named Adam Grant. Quote, "Loyalty doesn't require conformity. If consensus is wrong, you have an obligation to disagree. Weak leaders demand deference. Strong leaders welcome dissent. Being a team player is not about sacrificing your values for a group. It's about acting in service of the greater good." Thanks. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Wonderful quote. I'm just going to say, I really look forward to the possibilities that are before us. I know we see challenges. I know we see difficulties, but it's like a puzzle, and it's challenging and interesting and something I believe we can do. And what I like about it also is that we'll be doing it together. We see now more pulling together, more teamwork, more discussions, more heartfelt thinking and expression about the issues before us. And I'm very optimistic about what we can do together, even though I know that it's going to be hard work and some of it will suck. It's going to be something we can do for the greater good, to bring out the best in all of us. Thanks.
Chandra?
I just want to say I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I am really encouraged by the answers I've heard tonight from to the questions, really difficult questions, but also the answers from the other candidates. And it gives me hope that we're asking the right questions and thinking about the challenges that our societies face and looking at very diverse approaches. And it's just been a real honor and pleasure to meet you all, and I look forward to continued service with the Baltimore Ethical Society and the American Ethical Union. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita, do you have a final few words for us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say I'm most appreciative to each and every one that I've met through their bios, etc. It's as though I've gotten a feel, it's as though I know you and what you stand for. I appreciate that. And also I'd like to say that when I'm elected to the board, I will work diligently in the capacity that I'm most capable of working until a job is done, or either done to the point that I can pass it on to someone else. And also I bring diversity in the sense that this is something we need to think about. I think the last time a person of color has been on the board could have been maybe just prior to 2000, I think, I'm not sure. Her name was Greta Glatney, and she was on the AEU board. So let's think about that. We don't only want to talk the talk, we want to walk and talk and implement and show that we are a diversified group, and we bring different flavors that are bound to cause us to soar. And I have some magic that will continue to help us not only rekindle the fire, but make the fire and cause us to soar in the right direction.
Thank you. Sia, I'm going to ask you, even though you're not a new board member, I'm going to ask the current board members to give us a quick wrap up as well. Zia, go ahead.
I am really excited about being a part of the AEU group of people that are so optimistic about what we can do, whether your society is large or small. But I really share their joy and their optimism that we are doing things for the greater good. And I think that's what keeps us going, even at my age. I was just completely blown away by when Anya mentioned her age. She's 29, and next week I will turn 89. And I'm just so intimidated by the enthusiasm and the ideas that she has for how we can take this whole movement forward, that I am going to be following her. And even though I'll be slower, but I am really proud of the fact that I'm in this movement, and it's going to keep growing, whether it's small societies or large societies, because there is so much good in it and there is so much promise in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwight?
Thanks, everybody. I want to use my time to answer the question about COVID that was asked previously, because it provides an excellent accountability opportunity. Now, I knew for months that the science around COVID prevention had continued to evolve, but I never suggested, didn't even have the thought to suggest to the board that we needed to spearhead a best practices subcommittee to offer up-to-date guidance to societies. For instance, many societies require attendees to be vaccinated. By keeping out the unvaccinated, we are probably demonizing a large group of people unnecessarily. That's because vaccine escape is a well-known challenge now. Within weeks of having COVID or a booster shot against it, our wall of invulnerability begins to go down. If we pretend otherwise, we deceive ourselves and we cause bad feelings in others by excluding them from gathering at our societies. So to be accountable in the new board year, I look forward to working on that issue. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Dwight. And Liz, again, last but not least.
So uncomfortable situations and change really can bring out the best. I think what I found is these meetings of the candidates and the questions, this one and the last one, that there's amazing questions being asked. And I think we're at a place that that everyone's listening and we can move forward. I also think there's been some very dedicated work to policies over the last couple of years, learning from ourselves, and also surveys that we've done on the different needs of societies by small, medium, and large. I think by the new board taking all this information and this openness right now and the need for understanding who we are, where we're going, and our different kind of relationships with our particular regions, we can become a potential of making a statement. So I'm very excited.
Thank you very much. Let me just say a couple of things. One, thank you for everybody for participating and hanging in here. We've gone longer than we were planning to. We had all those troubles at the beginning and everybody just hung in with us. So thank you for all of that. Great questions, great answers. I, for one, am basically pathologically negative these days, and this has been inspiring and makes me think it's gonna be okay. The other thing I want to say, and I'm sorry for this emotional breakdown, but that's okay. I've just been on this committee very short, I don't know, few months. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I've done very little, but I have found out that Sue has done an incredible job with this committee for several years. So, and this may be the last time she's going to be dealing with any committee responsibilities. So we would like to give her a round of applause, virtual or otherwise. Thank you, Sue. I guess I turn it back over to Ken or Chris, or who wants to take it away?
Yeah, I'll pick it up. And as I'll echo Rebecca's thanks to everyone participating tonight and to today's crew, Rebecca and Chris Kamen and Bart Warden and Sue Walton. And Sue has asked for a valedictory moment. So Sue?
Rebecca, you stole my thunder. I've been crying for about the last hour because this is, other than being participating in the annual meeting, this is my swan song for 7 long years. And I did not think that when I joined the board development, I thought, hey, I can change how board members. Did not happen. I want to say thank you to Joan Lewis, to Rebecca, to Ken, to John McCormick, to Chris, and to my prior colleagues, Arnold Fishman and Jalal. They helped out. And then to the current retiring board members, Casey and Tom and Liz and Sonia, who gave me the rights to have privacy to do this job the way it's supposed to be done. And this is a committee that doesn't follow the rules. We have our own listserv, we have our own decks, we have our own Zoom account, but it's been a terrific ride, gang. And I thank you all for your participation. And I want to tell you in the goodness of an old Chicago Board of Elections character, vote early, vote often, but vote. So have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Sue. Many, many thanks. And I'll say that the reason we have a separate set of communication is to basically keep to be independent of the board, to look to serve the members of the future. I'll end tonight's proceedings on a personal note of my own. In 2018, my predecessors on this committee that Sue mentioned, plus she mentioned Arnold and Jill and Sue, Elle Miller, Bart Warden, and Jill All, Sue Alden, and they nominated, among others, a candidate from the Washington Society who would, it's turned out, be our union's president at a time of crisis upon crisis upon crisis upon crisis. And I know I've missed a few crises there. With wisdom, grit, and grace. And as a member of this movement, I feel a debt of gratitude to Sonia, to the 2018 committee members, and to everyone whose conversations in voice or text brought her name to the committee, and to those whose conversations led to her board work at the Washington Society before that. It takes a village. Thank you all for being part of that village and for participating tonight. Night all. Sleep well.
Night, gang.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.